just to quickly recap, last time we discussed some of the limiting beliefs. So what we think we are doing and what is actually happening. So we believe that these are our limiting beliefs, that we do not have time, we have to do more work, we have to read more literature, but actually that is not the case. Writing is writing, so it is the literature review and everything is part of that. And what we need to do is we just need to start from somewhere and just do it consistently. That is what we discussed last time. Today is I really like this topic. I really loved this idea. This is something which helped me initiate with a lot of things, and this is a very great advice for at least producing something, putting something on the paper, and that is, do not write the final version first. And this is the mistake which I have been doing my whole life. When we think of a research paper, when we think of talking to a friend or a colleague, we just start from somewhere. So we start speaking and discussing things, and then after 5 or 10 minutes, everything makes sense, and the next person is able to know what we want to talk about and is able to understand our emotions and everything, and then the discussion continues. But when we think of writing a report or a project proposal or a research paper or an email, we intend to write the final version first. So starting from hello, or I wanted to, or this is the attachment or something, or even when starting with the research paper, starting from the very first line title, we just want to write the final title on the very first instance and then move forward with it. And that is the mistake which I made for quite a long time. And the best advice is, do not write the final version first. And that means that just write whatever you think is possible. And the best way of doing it is, I don't know, every person's mind works differently, and it is much easier to, how do I say it? For example, some are visual learners, so they can doodle things around on a register or on a page and just use their pencil to write a few things or make cartoons or figures or some things or sketches. And that is where they can start writing from. Um, in my case, for example, I feel that it is much easier for me to discuss an idea with someone, to explain them what I think about it, why am I doing this research, why I want to write this paper, what kind of results I have achieved, and how do I want to present them. So from the very scratch, without even beginning the document, I would, this is something which I feel is works best for me. So I discuss it with them and record it. And then I do not discuss it, I do not think about it. Whatever I have recorded, I just put it on the paper. In Word, or just write it down point by point. And then based on that, I write comments, add a picture here, do this here, write this here, we need more details here, this simulation needs to be done, this experimental work graph needs to be extracted, and so on and so on. So it is a very vague way of starting, but I feel that the speed becomes much faster. So this way we have to produce many versions. So now, usually in the past, the version which I submitted to the journal was V4 or V5. Now it is V16 or 18, but that V4 or V5 came after 6 months, and now this V16 comes after 1.5 months. So I see there is a very clear difference here, because it is very difficult to start from a very blank paper. And even when, for example, I am thinking about title a lot, I'm thinking about abstract a lot, and introduction is completely different from these, and abstract completely depends on what I will write next. So I am in one state of mind, and after that it is difficult to shift in the other state of mind. But it is easier to discuss with a friend that that researchers has showed that this is how it goes, and they have showed that this is how it goes, but I could not find how I need to do this, and therefore I developed this methodology and I did this. And then I saw these really interesting results, and this is, I think, which we can publish. And then you have some sentences about introduction, you have some sentences about methodology, and you have an idea of how you want to show your big story, and then you have some idea of, okay, I can start with constructing these 3 or 4 figures. And that makes it much easier, super easy to start with writing. And that also comes with a methodology that, yeah, so it also comes with a possibility. I forgot what I wanted to say. But anyways, that is the basic idea of do not try to write the final version first. And it is one of the best advices I received. What I've written, and I also shared these documents with you guys, so you would have this document as well on which everything is written. So do not try to be perfect from the very first sentence you write on the blank page. This was the mistake which I did for most of the time. Give yourself space and room for error. So spellings, sentence structures, perfect English or German does not matter at all in the beginning. All that matters is that you are there, and then consistency. So the idea is, if you want to write faster, do it consistently. So block a time frame of 30 minutes or 45 minutes every day, wherever you find it appropriate, that you can write best in the very morning or in the very late evening or in the middle of the day, before lunch or after lunch, wherever you find it possible. Just give 30 minutes there, and that's it. Don't have to do anything, and in those 30 minutes, whatever you can fit well, you can. And then, for example, if that is the main task and that is what you have to do all day, then you will already have some documentation, you will already have some points to work on, and you will have more time to work on those. And that, I see it as fill in the blanks. So I put in the headings, figures, structures, and things first, and then it makes it much easier for me to decide, okay, I have 20 minutes or 30 minutes slot, what I can dedicate it to, and how can I proceed further with it now. And yeah, then keep it casual in the beginning, so you don't have to be hard on it. So that was the idea, and that is what we will discuss. Yeah, so that is from my side, and then we can discuss on this thing further. Whoever wants to add something or ask something or add on something or whatever.
Yeah, maybe I always have the problem to start writing. And I think it's probably because I try to, or I overthink too much.
Yes.
Maybe in presentation it's even worse.
Yes.
Because I, yeah, I think about it for such a long time and nothing comes on the paper.
Yes.
And yeah, I really struggle with how to start.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, so basically the overthinking is the very correct word, because then we think, okay, what the editor will say, what the reviewer will say, or how will I present this first slide, what should the color combination be, and yeah, so we are distracted by so many things. So overthinking would be a very precise word for this, no? So what they say is script your overthinking. So it is okay to overthink, but whatever you're overthinking, you can record it, you can make cartoons about it on your on a piece of paper, on the back of the page, or you can talk to someone about it and then record it. So overthinking is very appropriate, but just overthinking is bad. Thinking about it and then scripting it, whatever way is very comfortable, the most comfortable with you is the way forward. So yeah, that is a very nice word, overthinking.
Okay.
I would say do not overthink a lot. Overthink, but then
Yeah, I think
Note
I
it
will
down.
try the recording. I think that's an interesting way of yeah, saving ideas.
Yes, it helps. It. I feel it helps superbly. It really helps with introduction section and with results section. Because in results, when you have figures on, for example, for me, I put my figures first. So I have a story in my mind, and based on that, I put figures first on the there. And then it is very difficult to write a nice, interesting, homogeneous story from what we wanted to do, what results we are getting, how they are connected with the next figure, how this is connected with the next figure. And it becomes much easier if you are explaining it to a friend or someone who is familiar with the methodology. So and that gives you a very clear picture of, okay, so there should be a picture in the middle, or this is not necessary, just like a presentation. So basically you're recording a presentation and then you're just typing it in. And that makes a very nice story. Before that, I was explaining or writing about every figure individually, and that makes it hard to connect it with each other. And the story is relatively absurd. So yeah, it helps with these 2 points at least. Too much recording thing. And I also think that this is the bigger chunk of the article, why we are doing this work and what results we are getting. So once this is done, methodology is just what we have done, and more or less, depending on the reviewer or the journal, how much information they need. And then conclusions and discussions comes out once you are done with the results section. So it is difficult to write it before. And also this recording thing also helps with those two sections, because when you are explaining things from in the results section, so you tell, so from this graph we are seeing this, so this is something which is new, and we wanted to investigate this further, and then we did this. So that's something which you compare with the literature, or something comes later in the discussion section or the results section. So the novelties and new things and everything. So that also comes out of recording. Once you type everything on the paper, then you can realize which sentence belongs here, which sentence belongs to the previous section or the next section, and so on and so on. So yeah, super. And I see, for example, now when we are doing this, I see it really nice. So when I was explaining this, it is very difficult to just explain it in myself. But then Anit spoke a few words, and now I have 5 more minutes to speak for. And that is precisely what happens with when you're explaining your graph or your research or your figure to someone else. So they ask a question, and then you explain it in a different way, or connect it with something else, or provide more evidence to that. And that's precisely what is needed in a report or in a presentation. And that communication helps. And if you have recorded it, it makes it, and believe me, it is very difficult to comprehend how much we talk and how less we write. I can explain something to a friend for 30 minutes, and when I start writing, after one paragraph I'm done. So if that is recorded, it is very easy to produce 2 or 3 pages in 1 hour. So just write what you have discussed. And then, for example, of course, 2 or 3 paragraphs will remain in the results section, but a few will go in the introduction section, few ideas will come out, few will go in the next sections, and that is how quickly the mass is generated. And what what is a good idea is, we call this version 0. So it is not V1, it is V0 when you have everything in the document. But of course, there are ideas, figures, things there. So that is V0. And uh, then go through it multiple times, revise it and finalize it. That is something which we can discuss later. And then that is the first version, which you share with other co-authors or your professor or someone, and then from there on. So that is something which we are basically trying to write in the first place. But instead of writing V1, start with V0. And that gives you, that zero there gives you a feeling of lightness. Okay, I can make all the mistakes, I can do whatever I can there. There is no rush, there is no worry there. And there can be empty spaces and blanks, and comments and whatever yeah, there. Anybody else
Do
would
you,
like to add something?
I have a question about how you
Mm.
do this. I mean, recording is quite easy. You use
Mm.
your phone or like in
Yeah.
a meeting right now. And do you have an app or something to transcript, or you're really typing? Also,
So there,
you're
so there,
listening
so
and
there are two ways. So there are two ways. I find it hard to think and speak at the same time. So what I'm usually doing is so basically sometimes I'm discussing things with Uma. So Uma can speak Urdu, which is my actual language, so I don't have to think a lot about it. But of course, when I'm speaking in Urdu or discussing things in that language, it is difficult to transcribe it now. But of course, for example, if we have a meeting like this, then there are some really nice tools with transcription, so you can directly upload. So if you are discussing things in English, then it is much easier to transcribe, and there are really nice tools. Microsoft Word also provides an opportunity to do that. I've done it once, but then we realized that how much junk we are speaking. I don't know. I don't know. Kawach. So is the right word. So then we realize how much of that we are speaking, and there are many dots, commas, and that becomes even difficult to remove. So it takes a lot of time and toll to do that. So I have found this idea quite interesting, that record it even in English or in Urdu or in German, whatever you want, but then just listen to it and then type, pause
okay.
it and type. It becomes much faster, and you can quickly jump between the sections. So something has to go in the results section, something has to go in the discussion section, something has to go in the introduction section. So you can quickly jump in between, write all those sentences, and move forward with the audio, and that makes the future work much easier. So you can quickly fill in the blanks. Yeah, but so all these things is something which I have tried, but probably 100% of the time will be different for everybody else. So you will have to at least start from here, but you will see how well you work with the audios, or you are better with writing things or constructing things or writing it on the register or so or so. So it depends on everybody. Maybe you will find it more easier to just discuss it in English and then transcribe it and later delete things rather than writing it, typing it first. But
Yeah, I will
anyways,
give it a try.
yeah, that would, yeah, and yeah, you will see, you will see. I have seen this. So even if I discuss things, I am very clear about what I want to write. It is very difficult to write more than one paragraph, because then you are in the same area or the same zone of your mind, and the next paragraph or next figure is different, and then you forget where we started from and where we want to end. But when we are speaking, it is becomes very much easier to jump from one place to another, because you switch off your mind, then you're just typing, and yeah, it fills out space quite easily, and a lot of new ideas are generated. You listen to yourself speaking and you think, okay, why did I say this? Maybe I should add another figure here, and it is much easier to add comments and places here and there. It is same as we're doing now. I will again say, so Anit speaks 2 words and then I speak for the rest 10 minutes again. So it is precisely the same when you're listening to yourself again. So usually sometimes what happens is that I pause. So after I say one sentence, I listen to one sentence, I pause, I type in 4 or 5 sentences, because I can see how they connect with each other. And then I play it again, and then I realize, okay, oh, this is something which I spoke later about, and then quickly skip it and then move forward. But that helps with going through places. But that is, yeah, this is one way of writing. which is connected with do not write the final version first. So there are many other techniques and methods. Probably this is something which I have written later. Yeah, use a dictation tool. This is something which is written later. Record the story in language you are most comfortable with. Record the story around the data in the document like you would talk to a colleague, and then use transcription tools. So this is something which is already written later. But this is one technique. There can be something else. Just keep in mind that you're not writing the final version first. That's important.
Yeah, I think that's a topic which everyone can maybe use. I don't know. I think I will put a post-it on my screen and just write right there. Do not write the final version first. Maybe that already helps. I will
Yes.
try it.
Yeah. And then of course, this is something which we can discuss in the next meeting. So I tried it and then I found this or that, and then we will see how it goes forward. Okay, super. So we are 20 minutes in and we have already discussed the first two things. Anybody else would like to add something, or we can move forward? So Tohid is an upcoming researcher. He is working on a few writings himself, and I think these points or comments will be very useful for him, right?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, it was useful so far, and
Mm.
I'm so happy to be here in
Yeah.
this meeting. And I wrote down some notes, important notes. As you mentioned in this meeting, or in the last meeting that we had, I did record your voice, and
Mm.
I started to transcribe by listening and making the notes. However, during what I'm doing in these kind of things is that I'm listening to the recording once, like you said, and after that I'm just trying to uh, pick the important notes through the recording and writing down, not writing the everything
Mm.
that we are discussed. So because some of the some of the sentences are not useful, or so, or like you said, it is junk sentences, and
Precisely.
it is not needed to be write it
Mm.
down. So uh, these things were important. However, I also have some other things that I can make and I can share with you. Actually, since I came here, I've learned from Faisal that so many things, and the most important things was to me is that the make a structure for the paper, and after that just write some sentences for each section that what I'm going to do in this section. And uh, the most common mistake for me was to write a very long sentences, and this I during the meeting I learned to use a very short sentences rather than long sentences, because it would be much easier to remove some unnecessary sentences from the uh, paragraph. So, and
Yeah.
also for the paper, using some useful softwares are very important at the beginning, because it would be very useful for writing a paper, like using grammar check in the Microsoft Office Word, and also using the Mondeley desktop to
Mm.
prepare your
Bibliography,
references
of course.
at the first. It would be very useful for to use this softwares, and you don't need to, because the last before I come here, the last paper I was writing, I always write the references by my own, and
Oh
it
no.
takes long time. It takes long time for me to write the
Mm.
references. But just using this software, the software would
Mm.
provide you the reference, and it makes very
Mm.
easy. And so sharing these things is, I think, is very necessary because it makes easier.
Yeah, I also think this a lot of which Tohi discussed will come later, but I think this specifically about the softwares, I'm always skeptical of discussing how to use what software because everybody has their own working environment. So if you're using Lattice, then everything is completely different. And if you're using Word, then everything is completely different. It also depends on if you're doing a lot of experimental work, you will use completely different softwares to construct your figures or images. If you're using a simulation tool like I am, you will use completely different set of softwares and tools to construct your figures and everything. So I'm always skeptical about specifically stating which software or what or how to use it. Yeah, but maybe it will come later. Okay.
And I have one more question. And for for explaining something in experimental section, I always use the same or similar way of other papers to write some sentences. For example, for finite element, how to define, for example, meshing or boundary conditions. Always read some uh, similar publications, and use those ways for define those sentence sections. So is it good way, or should I change my way, or invent some new way from myself? I mean,
Would somebody like to answer that? I So what I feel is that creativity always comes with you start copying first, and then your own mind starts working, and after some time you are capable enough to so that without looking at other articles you can explain everything which is in the papers. So when I started writing papers, I remember that I did the same thing because you don't know how much or how less information you need to explain this thing clearly, and it gives you much help if you start by looking at a really nice published article that how much information they gave and then try to mimic that amount here, and that gives you a really nice start. But of course later you will have comments from your professor, you will have comments from reviewers, editors, from publishers, and later you will have your own methodology to explain things because it then narrows down to your requirements and needs. But it is a good start, I think.
so it needs only rephrasing the same sentences from other publications.
And also use different data, of course. So you
Okay.
will not be applying the same force or in the same way, but of course you will talk about force. So you will not use the same mesh of the same size and everything, but of course you will talk about mesh. So this is the nice start, I think. Okay, so then we are now quite late, and uh, I would like to then just wait. Let me stop the recording.